Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. And so I will be showing my lesson plan, and this is it. Not sure if you'll be able to see it or not. I wrote it in pencil, so it might be a bit hard to see it. And so for my lesson plan, the class that I'll be teaching is World History. The unit will be post World War II, and the title that I gave this lesson was Germany and the Miracle of Bern. And to give a bit of background, the Miracle of Bern was essentially focuses on the 1954 World Cup final and how that specific event essentially gave was a uprise for like West Germany in a social and cultural aspect, specifically because at that time like national pride wasn't like really a big deal in Germany after World War II, and like many Germans kind of felt humiliated. And so the for the content standard alignment, I put standard 8.1 W.B, which says that it evaluates the interpretation of historical events and sources, considering the use of fact versus opinion, multiple perspectives, and cause and effect relationship. So this lesson kind of goes into like a historical event. It does like concern articles that bring up multiple perspectives, both from like contemporary society and both from like perspectives from back in that era. And I also use standard 6.4.W.C, which says compare the role groups and individuals played in the social, political, cultural, and economic development through world history. And it interestingly enough compares kind of like the role that like Hitler had post World War II, and like kind of like how he brought that negative image to the Germans, and how like the West German national soccer team actually helped erase that image in it, not just for like people outside of Germany but for Germans themselves. Essentially how like it was like the day was like considered the birth, like the true birth of that nation. And so for the lesson objective, what I had in mind was that students would be able to identify how the 1954 World Cups had a positive impact on post World War II Germany. And so for relationships to unit structure, what I had was that the students will explore Germany's the first few years in Germany, and how those years were essentially considered dark years in which Germans would be like humiliated, and how like they wouldn't be at a great place economically and socially. And also like further explore kind of that journey to reconstruction, not only in the sense of like this tournament itself, but like furthermore like relations with other nations. And so for materials, I expect that students bring their notebooks, pen or a pencil for pens, specifically only a blue or black pen. If needed, students will be asked to bring a laptop. I will provide the students with articles. I'll be using a whiteboard, and I'll ask students as well to bring a 3-inch binder for their classwork, homework assignments, or like any articles that will be given out. And for anticipated misconceptions, one of the biggest misconceptions that I thought students might bring up is how Germany was still unified in that time, while in fact that at that time it had been separated to West Germany and East Germany. It wouldn't be reunified until later on. Another misconception that I put was that people would confuse that reunification with Germany's reconstruction. Just they're kind of similar, but it's mostly like in a different path. And for concept prerequisites or key vocabularies, I had put West Germany, East Germany, FIFA, the soccer organization, put historical historical people like Fritz Walter. The city of Bern in Switzerland is actually key into like this lesson, and to have like also a little bit of like background knowledge as to World War II, because that's kind of like how we will be transitioning into this lesson. And so for an introduction, our first anticipatory set, be having a lesson on the World War II's, kind of like a summary of World War II and like the aftermath, the results, kind of like what happened like afterwards. So essentially a cause and effect. And for instructional activities, I'll be handing out articles for students to read, and the articles themselves will be like based on different levels. I also want a Socratic seminar. I expect students to participate like at least three times, and it's not going to be based on the specific questions. We'll be bringing up a plethora of questions that are related to the lesson, and also presentations. I will be giving out like presentations, kind of like to help students kind of like figure out like what the timeline is and give background information that's vital to the lesson. And so for each lesson day, the wrap up would be an exit ticket with a partner. And the main reason that I did it with a partner and not just an exit ticket for like each student was that like that I feel that if students cooperate with each other, they will be able to like learn more off of each other, and they will also be given like a longer response rather than like the how like some students would give the typical like one or two sentences. So for differentiation according to student needs, I had mentioned about the articles, and what I planned to do was like give out three sets of articles, kind of like based on like where a student's like specific reading skills is, and on top of like along with the different articles based on the levels of readings, I also wanted to give different reading questions, not a huge chunk of questions, but like a decent amount. And then what I plan to do is like after each homework, after each article is read, I grade them, and if I feel that the student is like excelling more and more, then I will be slowly giving them like the harder article. Or if I feel that they need more help, I'll be like bumping it, like giving them the lower level article based on their reading skills. And lastly, for assessment, what I plan to do is, because I'm giving out a lot of articles to read, and I plan to do like a couple of Socratic seminars. For the formative, I actually just did like a binder check, which is essentially just to make sure that students have all their notes taken, they have all their articles, all the classwork and the homework. And the reason I opted to not give an exam for an assessment was because I felt that it'd be more important to give it at the end of the unit instead of like it at the end of the lesson. And not only that, but also kind of like to keep a way for students to stay organized. uh I've actually had to I've actually had to do this binder check before for several of my classes, and I found it to be very helpful for me, like personally for me to organize. So I felt that the need to do that would also help students as well. And so this is all of my lesson plan, and I hope you guys stay safe.